Hey everyone, my name is Bryon Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003. And this is Calgary Living, Real Estate and Lifestyle. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decisions specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, folks, welcome to another edition of Living in Calgary. Today, I am honored to have our mayoral candidate, Jeremy Farkas on the show. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
That is hilarious. Yeah, and I'm so proud. I don't know if I'm proud or humble. But I appreciate that. And so today, in the past sort of 24 hours, as I was learning more about you, I want to call you, Jeremy, but you say, I want to call you
Jeremy Farkas, that's fine.
Jeremy Farkas, yeah. And as I was learning more about you, I found out that you're an avid athlete like myself. And you just did the Calgary 70.3 half Ironman on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm an aspiring one. I've been the politics and the day job makes it a little bit harder to go after those long runs, but I just so enjoy Calgary as far as I live in the Southwest, so I can be probably 35, 40 minutes out to Prairie Mountain, some of the trails in Kananaskis, and can get those done actually early morning before the meetings and helps keep me sane for the day.
Exactly. Well, so we'll have to get out for a run sometime. And how long have you been doing triathlon? Has it been a long time or more recent years?
So I started back in 2014 and I've been doing it ever since I got the bug, and it's been actually just really great. The community is awesome, and it's not a race like you would think of, like everybody's sort of up against themselves. Their own mental willpower is the biggest thing. So super supportive community, excellent opportunities to get to meet people, really vibrant, I think, local race scene, a lot of great clubs, and man, it's just been a fantastic opportunity to try to better myself and get more and more personal best times, but also to get to meet those folks and to really see the limits of what the human body can do.
Well, that's awesome. And so coming from 2014, started getting into triathlon. Had you always been an athlete? What was your high school sport?
No, I wasn't. I was pretty much couch potato for a long time. I would do a little bit of camping and stuff like that with scouts, but never super active. And I think there's a certain point where I was able to really just turn things around, and I just met an incredibly supportive woman, and she's really been really super keen for me to keep in shape, eat well, that sort of thing. And for the past 8 years, I think she's just really been a great inspiration for me, just both personally and professionally in terms of that relationship.
Nice. So is she a triathlete as well?
No, she's not. I think there's a bit of a pain threshold involved in doing triathlon, and I think after about 6 or 7 hours on the course, it tires. So I think she's more of the scrambler, mountaineering kind of.
Oh, interesting.
And for me, I really do enjoy the long bike ride, either in a group or by myself. It's a good opportunity to kind of get away from things. And I do a lot of long distance trail running, which is why I've been able to listen to, say, podcasts like yours. And it's a good way to kind of just mentally reset and to give some perspective on some of the challenges I have either in my personal or professional life.
That's very cool. So I assume that you're sort of like me in that, you just dive into everything. So whatever you're doing, you're full in. And maybe that's why a little bit, I mean, a lot of triathletes, I think, are like type A personality, where we just want to give, go, and long is good. But we kind of like the direction of the start line versus, you mentioned your partner who's more in the mountaineering or trail running, it doesn't maybe need that. Okay, on your mark, get set, go. So, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's nice to have that grounding in something like triathlon or any kind of endurance sport. It's a big time commitment to be able to stay fit, to train for stuff like that. But I operate well when I have something to look forward to. I have a sort of a North Star to guide me, and having stuff like the 70.3 and other races throughout the year. It's a good reminder for why. Of course, there's inherent benefits to just staying healthy and being active and whatnot. But it is kind of nice just for my own my own personality is relatively competitive. So I do like to have those opportunities, but something like triathlon, though, I think it's mostly you're going up against yourself and you're trying to play out, or rather to outlast your own pain threshold, and mental willpower is really key in that. So I really enjoy the sport just in terms of the diversity and the fact that here living in Calgary, we have so many great opportunities to be able to enjoy our backyard.
Jerome, you're already a leader in our city. You're a councillor of which ward?
So I'm privileged to represent the Beltline along
Beltline.
Calgary. So I'm from the Ward 11 councillor, and I never thought that I would grow up and want to be a politician, but I think the seed started with my family experience. My father, he came as a refugee from communist Hungary. Could have gone anywhere in the world, but they chose Canada, they chose Alberta, they chose Calgary, and it was the best decision that they could have ever made. So I grew up in East Calgary, had to work hard for everything that I had, and worked practically full time from a pretty young age. So I knew that I wanted to give back, and just growing up, always heard a lot about opportunity, heard a lot about the sacrifices that have been made to give me the chance that I was given, and really instilled in me that drive to try to make things better off for the people who come after me.
And you're so Ward 11's Beltline, and you've been in that position since I think 2013, maybe, or
I was first elected in 2017. So
2017. Okay.
I'm one of the youngest city councillors ever elected.
Right?
Yeah, I think there's a couple who are younger than me by a year or two, but it was interesting starting my campaign when I was in my 20s then. And at the time, we thought it was such a long shot, but I think most Calgarians I would describe as sort of fiscally conservative, like financially responsible, but socially responsible as well, like socially live and not live, or progressive, if that makes sense. I'm not one for labels, but we found a lot of traction, especially in the inner city. People are looking for change, and really that focus on financial responsibility and economic opportunity is what we're trying to bring forward in this mayoral campaign. And with about 60 days to go, it's really exciting. It's a different kind of race for sure, and definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
I'm curious with that and relating it to sport. I started doing triathlon in 2000, actually maybe the 90s actually. And I was, I was kind of maybe genetically, sort of with just a little bit of focused effort, I can often find myself like on the podium, not in the number one spot, but often on the podium. And that's actually what happened this past weekend as well.
Yeah, I saw you at number 3.
Number 3rd in the age group. Yeah, very proud. Thank you. I was going for number 1, but I beat it. I lost it by 11 minutes. And it actually wasn't really a race because I'm just doing my best. I'm not really racing. And certainly the run was like, okay, let's just keep moving. The run is, of course, after a 90K bike ride and a 1.9K swim. So I kind of want to have your opinion on that. So I was way back in the late 90s through the 2000s. Actually, it was 2003. I did the Boston Marathon. And after that marathon race, I thought, that's it. I need to focus on my family. I need to focus on my business and no more of this crazy endurance stuff.
Marathons are tough, though. I never want to do another marathon.
I hate the marathon distance. It's like long. And so then what happened is my business was terrible. Like it sucked. My family and relationships went bad. And then, I would say bad, it suffered because I wasn't doing that part of me in the sport, world. And maybe I was still exercising a little bit, but maybe not to the amount that my body or that I need. And so then in 2006, I said, okay, I'm miserable. Let's do this again. I wasn't necessarily miserable. So then, but since 2006, I did another Ironman and got back to my kind of love of endurance and endurance activities. And since then, I kind of have to have a race to keep the motivation to do the workout or to stay fit, to do the mountaineering expedition that I would like to do, maybe. But then the other thing I thought about in 2006 or 7, actually it's more like 2007 or 8, I was being successful in sport and just okay, even as a realtor in my business, just a mediocre, normal realtor, average realtor. Did you know the average realtor in North America, Jerome, sells only 4 houses a year? Did you know that?
I had no idea.
I was kind of like that. Maybe not that bad, but kind of like that realtor back in 2006, 7. And not quite because we were booming here at the time in Calgary. But what I'm getting at is I was way better at racing in sport than I was in my own business. Are you able to, like, your love of now in sport and endurance racing, do you equate that to at all this campaign, this race, this mayoral campaign? Like, are you a better focused racer, or are you better focused in your business?
I don't know if you've ever been to a city council meeting, but most
I
people
haven't. And it's occurred to me that I'd like to go. I like to go see what Mayor Nemshi is like, particularly.
But I think that there's a good overlap, and having a high pain tolerance is helpful for both activities.
Oh, I bet.
That's one thing I would say. But you know what? I would say there's a lot of similarities between the two, because your race, the day, the conditions, the weather, your own training, a lot of that stuff is outside of your control. But 90%, I would estimate, has already been done before you even started the starting line. It's all your preparations. Some people might describe it as luck, but you kind of know how to pace yourself. You know how to heal yourself. You've done the training. You've done the intervals. Practically 90% of the work is done, and you sort of have to leave it to fate and just give it your best.
Just give it your best. And then it depends who shows up in terms of like whether you're going to win or where you place, I suppose.
But it's very similar in terms of campaigns, politics, elections, that sort of thing. No plan survives the battlefield, was what Napoleon said. So you could have the best possible candidate, you could have the best possible platform and all of that, and you can still lose. So sometimes life is just not fair, and that's how things happen. But I think with any campaign, though, you have to manage for things outside of your control. You need to have discipline. You have to have focus. You have to be really disciplined in terms of the message that you bring forward. And I think you have to be in touch with the voters, what the electorate's looking for. So I would say there's a lot of similarities between sports and politics. And there's definitely that competitive nature. Like for me, I'm all in on everything that I do, whether it's racing, whether it's politics. And that's one of the downsides to our system, is that me as a city councillor, I have to give up that job in order to run for mayor. So it's the rules are basically loser leaves town, and let Calgarians decide. But I really wouldn't have had it any other way.
Okay, so I want to look at that a little bit. So you had to give up that job. Do you have to give up your councillor job to run for mayor? Is that what you just told me?
Yeah, so I'm still city councillor until the election, but I can't run for both of those positions.
Oh, so you actually you have no job unless you win.
Correct. Yeah, but the one thing that I'm trying to change, though, is I think somewhere along the lines, being a politician, it became a bit of a career rather than a service. And I've done things to try to sort of break the mold. Like I'm the only city councillor who's ever turned down our golden pension. It's not well known, but there's about a 5-to-1 pension. About $5 taxpayers have to put in for every $1 that the elected official does. And that's just not fair. And a lot of what my campaign is about and the things that I'm pushing for is to sort of reform the system and really try to get City Hall working for the people again.
I noticed when I was reading a little bit about you yesterday, that you actually turned down some money or like in 2017, maybe you actually said no to, or maybe a decrease in pay. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. So many people don't know this, but getting elected here in Calgary, at least as a City Hall politician, is basically like winning the lottery. And I kept thinking when I started as a councillor, I kept thinking back to a conversation I had with one of my neighbors. She said, well, once you're downtown, are you going to think about me, or are you only going to think of yourself? So for me, turning down that pension, it was probably the most financially costly decision that I have ever made. But it's also the most politically costly, because it really set me on, I would say, a collision course with an out-of-touch establishment that in so many ways has put its own interests ahead of those of everyday Calgarians. And I think back to an exchange I had with another councillor one of my first days on the job. They came by my office and they're sort of offering advice, and I'm never the smartest person in the room. I'll listen to it and hear anybody out. But they'd gone over my website and they were discussing all the promises that I had made. And they said about a third of the promises I made were just completely impossible. And another third were going to be possible if I was around for maybe 10 or 20 years. And another third were doable as long as I was able to work hard. And I I asked, well, which of my promises are just outright impossible? And they said, well, turning down the pension, for one, that's just never been done. And turns out it was possible. But then more tellingly, the second answer was my promise to hold a monthly town hall meeting. So I'm unique in that every single month, I host a meeting where anybody and everybody can come and speak with me. And this other seasoned politician, they said that this was incredibly dangerous, hosting a meeting, getting in front of an audience, but giving the audience the microphone and having that ability to get completely off message. But I've hosted about 50 of these kinds of town hall meetings, and it's something I want to continue if I was elected mayor. And really, it's been a really good experience and exercise to ground myself to make sure that I'm constantly reminded that those are my bosses. These are the people who pay my salary, and it's the voters who hired me, and it's the voters who will have the power to fire me. So keeping grounded and focused on them as being my duty to serve rather than being there just for another job. So I knew that given the situation that we're entering here with Calgary, the economy, everything else, that I had to be all in. So I don't see giving up my councillor job as a downside. I see it as an upside.
Well, very cool. I'm intrigued, I guess, as a old guy now that I'm 55, or, it's not old, it's old for some and young for some too. And that's great. But
well, you have 20 years on me and you still beat my time at the 7.3. So,
well, thank you. But getting to the pension, like as a realtor salesperson, I have no pension, of course, and I chose that, but I am a little bit surprised and want to dig in a little bit about you saying no to that pension. And I think you're crazy, but that's like, I want, as a leader in our city, I want you to be, in this city, I want you to be financially rewarded, I suppose, for your work. So I don't necessarily approve that you did that, but you did also mention that it had some repercussions in terms of the other counselors in the room. Did I hear that right? And I'm not actually that surprised, being in a sales position that I'm in. And once, other salespeople find out what you're doing and they don't like it, there might be pushback. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? What was there pushback? And was there a few years? 2017 is actually a long time ago now, 4 years. I assume you're still not getting the pension, and I mean, maybe it's gone away by now. Like, tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, and it's a real competitive environment. And I think it puts some of them on the spot. And there's some counselors to this day who just don't want to work with me or to even talk to me because of that decision that I.
Oh no, really? That's unfortunate.
You have to remember that our city council and mayor are the highest paid in Canada and some of the highest paid in North America, plus the expense accounts, plus the golden handshake in the event that you retire or you lose an election. All of that on top of the defined benefit 5-to-1 pension. Not to mention that the mayor also, up until recently, receives 2 pensions. So for me, my focus is really around financial responsibility. Yeah. I don't believe that as a leader, I have any moral authority to say, hey, we need to hold the line on wages and spending on salaries if I'm the first one in line to get that automatic pay raise and to get that glorious golden pension. So for me, I knew I had to turn it down to have that moral authority and to lead by example, to be able to make an issue of reforming just generally compensation at the city. And salaries, wages, benefits, and overtime, they have been a huge driver for the various cost increases and tax increases that Calgarians have experienced. And given that it's been about a doubling in residential property taxes over the past 10 years, even a 7.5% increase in a single year on homeowners last year, I just know that we need to leave no stone unturned to be able to reduce costs and lead by example. So for me, turning down that pension, I think is reasonable because elected office, it's not supposed to be a career. It's not supposed to be something that you work at 30, 40 years, you put in your time and you collect your pension. The moment that you're elected, you have 4 years notice that the taxpayers might not hire you again. I believe that, especially given that we're the highest paid in Canada, we should take that personal responsibility to plan for ourselves, especially with our personal and family financial situation.
If you don't mind, and if it's not a fair question, please say delete. What is the pay of a counselor?
So pay is approximately $115,000, but there's all sorts of other top-ups, all sorts of other benefits that are afforded. And I think, of course, the pay should be competitive to be able to attract talent, but the focus should be on results. And I thought that Calgarians would be best served with a council that's focused on, I would say, servant leadership rather than trying to find folks who are there to be motivated by the pay.
Interesting. And so I like to maybe, I feel like I could take a lot of time here with you. I'm enjoying the conversation with our shared interest, I suppose, in endurance sport, but a little bit. But I want to get to maybe some rapid fire questions. But before I go, you were in 2017, I think you were in your 20s, or probably 2016 when you started thinking about, this role as a leader in our city. And again, I want to thank you for that. I think it's to stand up like that for your city is awesome. And on that note alone, it's a pleasure and privilege to speak with you. Tell me, how does a 20-year-old, or late 20s, early 30s, make this leap, into leadership? And I mean, even you're still very young, in your mid 30s, going for this leadership role. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened for Jerome? What were the steps that are bringing you to there? I guess you already touched on a little bit about your own upbringing and your immigrant parents, or your immigrant father, at least.
Sure. So I have two reasons that I ran for council. One is a big reason, and one is a little reason. So the big reason is, the way my father would describe it is my nagmama, my grandmother. She would practically every week, she would go down to her local city hall office. She had a garden. She would cut fresh flowers and provide it for local alderwomen. And once she was asked why she did this, and she said that she did because these are the people at City Hall who you go to if you ever have a problem. If you ever are in trouble, these are the people who can help you. They're the people that you can trust. And for me, naively, as a young, born and raised Calgarian, as a young Canadian, naively, I had sort of thought, well, of course, these are the people at the government. They're supposed to help. But it's only with the benefit of some age and some distance that I have the perspective to realize that she had escaped an oppressive regime where the politicians were corrupt, the police were corrupt, the government quite literally was hostile to its people and had taken absolutely everything from them, the property, their rights to freedom, and all of the rest. And it's only as an adult that I realized sort of the leap that she must have took to escape, to come to Canada and want to be Canadian, to want to learn to love and to trust again. And for me, I didn't think that I wanted to grow up and be a city councillor, but I kind of knew that I wanted to be somebody that you could go to if you ever had a problem, somebody that you could trust, somebody who, like my nagmama, looked at with respect, somebody that was willing and eager to do the right things for the right reason. So that I say would be the big reason. But the little reason was back in 2015. Every year there's what's called the City of Calgary Hackathon. It's a competition of up-and-coming entrepreneurs, coders, software engineers, programmers, all the rest. And there's about 200 or 300 of them locked in a room for a weekend. They're given a certain problem to solve, and whoever comes up with the best business idea or app that they've invented over the weekend is given a big cash prize and sort of given a blessing to go on to save the world. Well, in 2015, I joined this competition, and with a few folks that I met through the course of it, we built a team and we developed an app completely from scratch. And by the end of the weekend, we actually were fortunate enough to win first place. So somewhere in the archives, there's a picture of me standing with this giant-sized check, and they gave us all the encouragement and the accolades. But the problem is that we live in Calgary, and I want to be crystal clear on this point. Calgary has the story that we tell ourselves about being open for business, about being entrepreneurial, about having a can-do attitude. And to be clear, Calgary is all of those things, and Calgarians in particular are definitely those things. But our city hall is not. And because of city hall regulations and red tape, largely around the open data catalog, we couldn't actually get off the ground with this app idea that we had. And it was heartbreaking, but we sort of accepted it. And by the end of 2015, I reached out to some of the team members and I asked them what they were up to. And many of them had left for Toronto, for Ottawa, for Vancouver, other places where these ideas and such like that weren't given the lip service, but they were actually given the support that they needed to get off the ground. And that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. At that point, I decided, I was going to run. I was going to try to change things. And it was going to be a long shot, being a complete unknown, no name recognition, none of the big businesses behind me. But I decided to knock on doors through a very grassroots campaign. We were able to get a campaign together and got off the ground and actually defeated a former PCMLA with deep connections and a huge war chest. And it sort of put me in the awkward position of that first day on council to actually try to be following through on all the promises that I made.
Wow.
And I think over the past 4 years, I've been able to actually really raise some important issues on behalf of my constituents, advocating for financial responsibility, for transparency, giving Calgarians a voice through the Olympics debates, fighting against some of the secrecy, advocating for, say, against the defund and abolish the police movement. So there's been a number of issues that I've been really blessed to be involved with and things that I've pushed for on behalf of my constituents. But I would say, if anything, the age has given me a bit of a perspective on some of these challenges and opportunities that many of the other councillors who have been in there for, say, 10, 20 years or more, I just didn't have. Of course, any effective team is going to have, I would say, a varied diversity of views around the table. And I'm not saying that younger is necessarily better, but I think for a city hall establishment that has been locked in for so long, having that fresh set of eyes is something that I believe has resonated with my constituents. And my hope is that through this mayoral campaign, that most Calgarians will agree that we need change.
Interesting. Thank you. On that kind of note, or like looking into that a little deeper, again, like I totally see why you have run for councillor and now why you're running for mayor. And again, thank you for it. Before having this conversation, I was like much more skeptical on sort of the wishes or the thoughts of why anyone would do this job, but I've had a lot of fun. So I mentioned I'm not that political. I'm really not political at all. I was in high school. In high school, I served on our student council, but really nothing since. And I don't pay attention. In my perspective as a now Calgarian, I feel, I don't have any strong opinion whether our city council is doing good or bad. Mm-hmm. I feel I like Mayor Nemshi because what he represents or what I know about him, I haven't particularly paid attention. When was he elected? Was it about 2013 or was it 2017? When was
it? Was 2010 when he ran.
Oh, it was a long time ago. And so he used social media, I think, that for the first time ever, like a mayor uses social media and wins the election, a guy of, like a visible minority, I suppose. And now how, and since this we're entering a new election now in this year of 2021, October, where the rules have changed on how much money you can raise and maybe even what you can do. Social media, is that true? And has Mayor Nemshi done a good job? What is he like as a leader of our city? Is that a fair question?
Oh, absolutely. And I consider Head Nemshi to be a close friend. We're together in so many of these meetings for hundreds, if not thousands of hours, and it's hard not to actually like the people that you work with. And I think there's a certain media narrative that we're always butting heads. It could be because I'm not a big fan of these tax increases and some of these new taxes that potentially impact people in a big way. But on many of the issues, he and I have been able to work closely together. Like a good example is us partnering closely to restore the City of Calgary's summer student hiring program. So this was a program that was cut to try to save money, but it ended up costing more money instead of the students doing the work, but actually full-time and union folks. So it's something that we were able to work to restore, to be able to give a better, fair deal for taxpayers, but also to be able to help, especially our young people, to get their foot in the door for new opportunities and various technical trades and so on. So I would say Mayor Nemshi, he was very effective in using social media. And I think his original pitch, which was financial responsibility, it was transparency, and even the Calgary Sun of the day had endorsed him, and I quote, as the real fiscal conservative. I think the issue though is that
I had no idea that was his original campaign, fiscal responsibility, and yes. I would think I have no clue really because I don't pay attention. I would think that he hasn't been fiscal responsible at all. Is that correct?
Well, that sort of leads into my next comment.
Okay.
What he's done in his role, he's done a lot of great things, but I think in terms of the two things that he promised most, which was financial responsibility and transparency, I don't think that he's done a good job of following through on that. Through things like the Olympic debate, hundreds of hours of secret meetings. City Council here in Calgary has more secret meetings than say, Ottawa, Vancouver, Hamilton, Toronto combined, and especially with these very big tax increases in recent years. I think that you can criticize sort of the record, but I think as an individual, as a man, he loves our city probably more than anybody else that I know, and I respect and I appreciate him, at least on a personal level. But I do think that given the challenges that we're facing as a city, Calgarians are looking for something different. They're looking for a new approach, and they're also looking for somebody who has the proven record to actually do the things that they say they'll do. So as compared to the other candidates running, I think I have one thing that they don't, which is credibility. Not just talking a good game during the election, but actually taking the heat over the past 4 years, advocating for my constituents, making the tough decisions like turning down the pension law. And I think, again, I offer something that something that most people can actually believe in and take to the bank. And the issues are really important. So even if you don't think that you're interested in politics, some of the ramifications of what's being discussed today are huge potential on our city. So it may interest you to know that, let's say for maybe some of your real estate listeners, the city is actively exploring and pushing for, say, a land transfer tax. What could potentially be the impact of that on your industry, and other things like through this guidebook, potentially phasing out single family zoning. So for many people, purchasing a home is one of the largest investments that a family will ever make. And is it fair for the city of Calgary to be perhaps changing the deal and unilaterally changing the zoning for some of these folks? I think that could potentially have a huge impact. Other things like, it was just about a week and a half ago, big debates on starting to sell off regional parks. So a portion of Richmond Green Park, which is a regional park, was starting to be sold off for commercial and residential development. So for many folks, you may not think that you're interested in politics, but when you think about issues like
No, I'm interested in all of those things.
as well as defund the police.
Are those politics?
And most people wouldn't think about it as politics, but it's going to have a huge impact on many people's everyday lives. So I think part of that is the challenge for candidates like me to get people like you and perhaps some of your listeners interested, engaged, and to actually be speaking to the issues rather than just be, say, attacking each other and mudslinging. So I would say the mudslinging tunes people out, but if I talk about the issues, I think that is how we can actually get somewhere.
Interesting. I'm going to ask the question, and I actually don't think that you need to answer, but how do you reach someone like me? I don't think there's any point in answering. I mean, in terms of spreading the message, or how does someone like me, or even the average Calgarian, how do they decide who they're going to choose? Like, how do you sort through these 24 candidates and decide? I mean, I would have chosen Mayor Nemchi just because of his smile, or, he looks nice. If I had voted in 2010, I may have voted, I may not have, I don't remember. But, I saw a video of him and his sister and his family, like on YouTube or something like that. One of those 2-minute videos that he was doing. Yes, he touched my heart. So, but I don't think we need to answer. Richmond Park Green, is it too late? Is it sold? What can people do about that?
So the zoning's been changed. Part of my platform is actually a ban on selling city parks. I believe that it's foundational for the city council to be good stewards of the property that we have. And selling off these green spaces, it might, say, help with some of the financial challenges in the short term. But I believe that it's a very short-sighted approach for this council. I think that we should lead by example through, say, controlling costs, doing more of the same, just as every say, household or business owner has had to over the last 5 years. It's sort of like burning the furniture to try to heat your house. It might work for an hour or two, but the lasting damage, I think, is incredible. So something I'm advocating strongly for is protections and to green spaces like that, but also to try to conserve and expand our park system. Because if anything that COVID has shown us is I think Calgarians enjoy the recreational opportunities. They enjoy going outside. And I think having more green spaces, especially in our inner city, that's a value add that helps with our property values. And it's something that really encourages people to want to live in Calgary in the first place.
Well, that's awesome. So can it be saved? Richmond Green, you say the zoning has already changed. Is it a done deal?
So the zoning has changed, but depending on the timelines for when and how it's sold, it could potentially be undone by this next city council. So depending on what happens in the next month or two, I would definitely be pushing to undo that.
Are you encouraging, is the word constitutes like myself? Did I say that word correctly?
If depends.
Are you considering encouraging constituents like myself who actually would not want that to happen to do something? Like, what could I do at this point? Anything?
For Richmond Green, that's in Ward 8. So for Ward 8 candidates for City Councillor, I'd be pressing them hard to make sure that who you vote for is somebody who is interested in, say, having reasonable policies around planning, development, rezoning, but also one who is willing to stand up in defense of our parks. I'm generally pro-business, pro-industry, but I don't see our parks as being red tape. And I know that some of the development community are very influential, especially in election time. But for me, even if it loses me vote, even if it loses me donations, I need to stick to my guns and say, my voters have told me that they value our park spaces and they want more, not less.
Okay, good. I'm really enjoying the conversation. I'm enjoying what I'm learning. I'm already looking at my watch and I'm thinking, oh no, this is getting long. No one's going to want to listen this long. So I want to do some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. And let's try to be really quick on them. And these rapid fire questions come from my friends on social media for the most part. I asked, hey, what would you want to know about your mayor? And so Michelle wrote, where do you stand on bike lanes and urban sprawl?
Generally for people to have the choice to, as far as how they want to get around. I think that some of the current approach from the city on bike lanes has been a bit too ideological. They're ramming through the bike lanes in certain areas where there's not the community support, there's not the support from businesses. And I think that hasn't actually driven the results as far as more people riding their bike. But for me, I'm personally an avid cyclist. I see a huge benefit in our pathway system. And I'd be open to continuing to invest in things like our pathway system as long as it's being done with proper consultation with the community. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of development, I'm for choice in housing. I'm for affordability in housing. And I think that as long as those individuals who are, say, purchasing the suburbs are the ones who are paying full freight for that decision, they should have the choice. Not everyone wants to live in, say, a high-rise condo in the downtown. Maybe you do if you're a younger urban professional, but some younger families, especially just starting out, they want the room to grow. They want the space for their kids and maybe their dogs or other animals. And I don't think that City Hall telling people how they should live their lives is of any benefit to anybody. So I just very much in favor of the market deciding these, as long as it's not taxpayers who are subsidizing a decision that otherwise should be left to an individual and their family.
All right, cool. A friend on Insta by the name of Diesel, or user handle Diesel Hippie, he's more of a rant than a question, so you'll know where it leads. Any plans to axe he said, stupid international art projects and frivolous spending thereof? He says, we absolutely have more than enough talented local artists, many of whom do not receive, enough support to run their businesses or their lives. And he thought that some of that was a bit of a slap in the face to Calgarians in terms of the international art project. And what just thoughts on that, maybe quickly on our art projects? Personally, I love the art in the city, public art that we have in the city, and I think it looks nice. And for the most part, I don't have any real complaints.
Yeah, I think the comment, spot on that your friend gave you there. I've had huge issues though with the Calgary taxpayers basically prioritizing these large art projects from these international firms where it's not local Calgarians who are benefiting from that. There's been huge issues in terms of where the art projects are located. I think that they need to be more publicly accessible. It makes no sense to have a giant blue ring or tall rusty things on the side of a highway. If it's going to be art, it needs to be somewhere where people can appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Same thing with a lot of the money being spent really behind closed doors or within a city facility behind a chain link fence at some wastewater treatment facility. So there's a lot of stuff that's just not publicly accessible. So I think for something to be public art, it needs to be publicly accessible, and it should be Calgarian taxpayers who are the ones who are benefiting from it. I believe that the recent increases, like doubling the budget over the last 2 or 3 years, is just all warranted with the economy the way it is. And I think that if we are going to be spending money on this, we should be having a policy which actually better enables local artists as well as our Indigenous communities to be able to participate and to better tell Calgary's story.
Nice. It's your first, the people have said, yes, Jerome, we want you as our mayor. It's your first day on the job. Who are you calling?
That's for Wayne Menchie.
Yeah. And who are the first meetings with?
I would say that it's probably Marinenci as far as just the transition. I think that regardless of who wins this next election, it's big shoes to fill. I think for better or for worse, he has been our mayor for the next 11 years. So there's a lot of things that are on the go that he needs to be able to hand over. But I think the biggest opportunity is going to be coming together as an effective team, working together with a newly elected city council. You're looking at maybe 9, 10, or 11 new faces out of 15, and that's just completely unheard of. No, really, the biggest changeover we've had in history is 6. So
Wow.
at least 9 or 10 this time.
Why is that? Because it COVID, everyone changed their priorities, move around.
Well, there's some of them have been there for a long time.
Is that right?
Some of the decisions that council's been making, like selling off parks, huge tax increases, defunding the police, I believe in very popular amongst the public. So if I were to speculate, maybe some are just not running because they think it might be an uphill battle or they might lose. But otherwise, I can't really speculate, and I think that it's good to have that changeover. And if there's anything I offer, I think it's having knowledge of the system, knowing how City Hall works, while also having proven that I'm not a slave to the system, that I'm not a slave to the bureaucracy. So I think hitting the ground running, we're going to have to work together as an effective team, as a council. And beyond that, it's going to have to be getting our budget under control. I'm going to be pushing hard for a 4-year tax freeze, giving our local businesses and residents the certainty that they need to be able to ride out the remainder of this pandemic. And really just to work relentlessly for economic development. I think that we got to get Calgarians back to work. And job number one for this council has to be jobs for Calgarians.
Okay. So here's a question that is a little bit embarrassing for me because I had to actually use Google to find out what they meant by the question. And the question read, where is my GD in caps field house already? Question mark. And so then I was like, GD, like, what does that stand for? Field house. Well, it turns out it's probably goddamn and a field house. So then I actually searched Google field house Calgary, and it's something that I should be well aware of. But they've been pushing for a field house in Calgary since about 2007-8. There was a website that was created, compared to other major cities, not only in Alberta, but Canada. Like apparently lots of cities with 100,000 people like Lethbridge have a field house. So could you answer that question? Why do we, as a city of over 3 million now? Why don't we have a field house, and where is it already? Apparently there's 2 sites proposed. Maybe by now neither have been approved.
Yeah, so the city's been exploring this for a long time, and I think that it's a really important facility to have, and it's something I'm personally supportive of. The council basically decided to leapfrog, and given the 300 million plus that's required for the new arena, that is being the priority at this point. And it's a whole other debate on whether or not that money should have gone to something where you have to pay tickets to get into versus a field house, which would just be accessible to anybody and everybody. But that's maybe a different conversation.
That's a different conversation. So I went to the Field House Calgary Facebook webpage because the link led me there. And the last update was in 2019. So maybe it's just not coming.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of proposal. There's a lot of exciting vision for a project like that. But when it comes to taxpayers at this point, we're pretty much tapped out. Given the commitments that we've made on the green line, on the arena, and other things. And it sort of comes back to better setting priorities that reflect the will of Calgary.
Okay. Do you think there should be a transit fees for students from kindergarten to university?
So I believe that the city works together with the local school boards and districts to be able to provide discounted passes. In my role, I've supported our low-income transit pass that's based on your income level. And it's something that I've supported as subsidies for lower wage earners, seniors, and so on. But specific to the student piece, I think that's more of a question for our local school board.
Will you manage your own social media or hire someone to do it or quit altogether?
I have a team of volunteers who help me with the social media. I have a lot of input in terms of what gets posted, but I'd say it's a mix between the two.
Do you believe there is value in having a mayor travel outside of our city, province?
Absolutely. I think something previous mayors have done is just burn a lot of shoe leather on economic development. Some may hear through the grapevine that, a certain business is thinking of Calgary. It's not good enough to say, well, if you're in town, I'll meet with you. I think you have to go on the hunt. You need to be in their boardroom. You have to be on their home turf, and you need to be making the case for why Calgarians should be their destination of choice for investment. So I think absolutely my vision for the mayor's chair and that role is really economic development. So if elected, I would see myself committing to be working long hours and hard on the hunt to be able to attract those firms and those businesses to locate to Calgary.
Very nice.
And part of it's also standing up for Calgary's interests. There's a lot of decisions that are being made about Calgary around, say, energy, oil and gas, pipelines, stuff like that. That if we don't make the case more broadly to the rest of Canada, I fear those decisions being made without us. So I would certainly want to see this next mayor of Calgary to be taking a very, let's say, respectful but aggressive approach to advancing and protecting our interests in our industry.
What languages do you speak?
I speak English as my first language, and a little bit of Hungarian, a little bit of German, and Spanish.
Oh, nice. Okay. So last question, name 3 communities in each quadrant of the city as fast as you can.
Rocky-View, Martindale, Seaton, Oak Ridge. 4 quadrants.
Those 4 quadrants? Okay. We really appreciate your time here today. Last minutes, is there anything that you would want the listeners today to take from this, or do you have an ask from our audience? And finally, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? And do you have an ask for the audience if somebody wanted to support or help you? Like, can I get a yard sign? Doesn't that help?
Absolutely. This election, it needs to be decided by everyday Calgarians, rather than, say, the big shots on the golf course or the union bosses in some back room at City Hall. There's been some allegations of, say, some campaigns using third parties to funnel money to launder corporate donations. And for our campaign, we're very committed to doing everything the right way, completely above board, transparently. But also means that we do lose out some of the support from, let's say, that establishment. So it's everyday people who are going to make it or break it for us. And we need your support. So I would encourage you to visit www.jeromy.ca. And one thing I just want to leave off on is, I'm never the smartest person in the room. And I've been very, very fortunate to be able to listen, learn, to meet so many people through my time as a counselor and also on the campaign trail. And if any of you have any ideas, thoughts, suggestions that would be of help to us, please let me know. I want to do a good job for you, and I'm committed to doing everything that it takes to be able to get Calgary back on track. And I would just close off on just a spirit of optimism and hope. Like, this sounds kind of silly coming from a politician, but I get to meet so many people through the course of my day that I can't say this anymore, but I will. It's a bit infectious. Just as far as the optimism, the hope for our future, we have so much great going for us as a community, as a city, our local industry, as a business. And that I know that we've been sort of knocked off our feet, but I think that people will look back to the decisions that we're making now, the decisions that we're making in this coming election, and they will be able to point to this moment and say that Calgary's comeback started right here and right now. And that cannot happen without you. So despite the fact that some of you may not think that you're interested in politics, I hope that based on some of the issues that we touched on today, that you reconsider, because if you don't get involved, these decisions will be made without you. So whether or not you're going to vote for me, that I don't really care. I would just say vote, period. Get interested, get engaged, and participate, because this is our future that we're talking.
Well, Jeremy, you really, my heart is touched. I really am touched by how you speak and your passion and interest and conviction and love of this city, love of this country. It really sounds like it to me. So I want to thank you, and we're going to continue to keep in touch.
Yeah, you'll have to have me again. Well, I could even do a full 30 minutes talking about local trails and stuff like that.
Well, I would love to try to, as we're approaching the closer days when you're really, really busy in October, maybe love the opportunity to do it again then, if that will work. So let's keep in touch, and thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
I'll just hit end.